So, guys, I would like to tell you a story about how I lost 27 millions. That was the first time I ever lost money. It was in 2017. I had just returned to Uganda, and at that time, I was having two projects of my own, and then I also decided a relative of mine asked me to help them with their own project, which was being done from Luero. So with my project was being done in the west. My two projects were being done from the western part of the country, western Uganda, and the other project was in the opposite direction, which is Luero. So we both know how long a distance that is. So basically, I decided to take up farming. A friend of mine convinced me to do farming for food crops, and what I did was we made a plan that we were going to do maize farming. We were going to grow nuts. We were going to grow beans. We were going to grow peas, and then also we did Irish potatoes. We grew Irish potatoes. So everything went in well. I invested a whole 27 millions, and that the biggest amount came from, the biggest expense was from labor, of course. We cultivated about 60 acres. That's what the project covered. And so everything went well. Crops were growing. Of course, there are some challenges which we faced. Like, for the first time, I came to realize that's the time when there is this pest that attacks maize. It's called what is it called? It's like kalingenvuni, kauka kalingenvuni. It's a caterpillar, basically. So it feeds on the leaves of the maize crop. So basically, that was the first time I encountered it, and I think that's the first time it became so well. That's when the country was hit mostly, because it was also talked about in the media, in the news. It was covered in the news, and you can't imagine how expensive the pesticides costed us. So we overspent on labor. I didn't assess the project. I didn't do enough research regarding the labor and how much we were supposed to be paid. How much we were supposed to pay out. So basically, it was like we were paying, I think, was it 10,000 per person per day? Yeah, I think it was around 10,000 to 8,000 a day. And we had about how many people we had? I think there were 32 guys, and then that's basically much on the labor part. But also, we were feeding those guys to make it worse. So we were feeding them. So the mistake was those guys started misusing the food because they were receiving free food, and they were also, because we were paying them per day, they did not want their job to finish. So that was the first time I made errors in agriculture. I had never ventured in an agricultural project before. So basically what happened was we were spending too much on labor, on feeding them. We were spending a lot on paying them. I should have done it better, maybe by negotiating a salary, and then give them food, or trying to incorporate the fact that I was paying them, I was giving them food as well. But all in all, that's one lesson that I learned, that I needed to research the project well. But then the other catastrophe that hit us was, it's not a catastrophe per se, but I did not give this project that much attention. Most people who know me, I give my projects full time. Like I make sure that I'm there. I make sure that I supervise. If not, I have someone whom I trust with my guidance. Then they run or they advise me or something of that sort. So basically for us, what we did was, at that time, the fact that we were having a project that we were managing on behalf of my relative who is living outside of the country, I did not have enough time to monitor the project. So we were being affected by the monkeys also. Monkeys love, did you know that monkeys love crops, maize especially, because they could uproot the maize, you know, that seed before it gets rotten. They could uproot them and feed on those seeds. And then when it started putting in grains, they could actually pick. It's like we were battling with monkeys from the time of planting up to the time of harvesting. But most importantly, I think also the fact that I was dealing with, when it came to harvest time, I did not have enough time to dedicate to harvesting. So basically the other blunder that we did, we harvested maize. We were also having some thieves, local thieves on the on the plantation. People could encroach. Our maize grew well. It grew well. But the other plants did not make it that much. They did not perform as much. But the blunder that we had with maize, we harvested before it actually got dry, like real dry. It was halfway dry. We just harvested the way it is without removing these covers, these husks. So we harvested the way it was, and then we piled it in storage because we didn't have time to harvest it. So basically what I did, I just brought in people to just do the harvesting, take down the crops, and pack them into storage. I remember we filled 3 rooms, and then I ran back to Luwero to because the project also needed my attention at that time. So basically by the time I came back, I didn't know that this ungrown maize, undried maize, does generate moisture. So the literally what happened, the maize had boiled itself. The color was different. There was literally nothing much we could do. We just took it out and then decided to sell it at a very cheap price, and it was processed as maize bran. So what are the biggest takeaways out of this experience? For me, every experience, bad as it may seem, I always take it as an advantage. I either learn, for my experiences, I either learn and grow out of it, or I benefit in another way, but I never count my losses as really a big loss. It's a lesson. So basically my takeaways are never not like always have time and commit to your projects. Always have time to keep an eye, and if you think that you're not going to be present, put some other measures, put some other measures. It was so stupid of me, and I'm telling you guys, I'm not the person who easily loses money, and to be honest, that was the first time I ever lost like such an amount of money. The other time was when I lent it to a relative of mine, because he promised he was gonna do a business whereby he was still going to pay me the same amount which I had thought I would get from if I invested in another project. So I was like, well, I could give it to him. I'll be growing him, helping him grow, but at the same time, I'll still make the same money. So, but then, yeah, that's a whole other story. But anyways, you need to have time. You need to be committed, and you need to do your research well. That's something that I learned. Don't jump into a project just because someone excites you about it. Look at everything, even the things that you don't consider to be important. Take your time, assess it, learn how other people are doing it. Do some research, read, ask other people who have done it before. With agriculture, you have to visit other people who are doing it. You have to actually see, you have to do enough, not just one person. One person can misguide you. Information from one person can misguide you, but if you visit different people, then you'll be able to judge out who is lying and who is telling the truth. So, yeah, I guess that's one lesson. And from then, the biggest takeaway that I took, I vowed never to do short-term crops. I decided to not seasonal crops. I instead decided to do perennial crops, those crops that take more than a year to grow, like, you know, bananas and coffee and stuff like that, because you can recover out of that. But with these short-term crops or seasonal crops, the moment you're hit with a catastrophe, if you make a mistake and you're hit with a catastrophe, then you lose it. You have lost everything. Anyways, that was my lesson, and yeah, I guess that's it. I just thought I should share with you guys. Tell me how you have ever lost money.